All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Monday, January 29th. Fuck it. It's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. All right, Clayton. This weekend at box office broke the streak that had been going, and I'm going to look this up because we had a very helpful uh BO boy Champser. I have it somewhere. I'll get the information. He had it somewhere, and then I haven't. Oh, okay, the streak since Friday, September 22nd, 2003. This is the first weekend since then that a movie has not made at least $10 million at the box office. So that the last time that happened was the weekend of September 22nd when Nun 2 came in number one with 8.5 million. And since then, there's at least been a $10 million grosser every weekend until now, until this weekend, only single digits. Miller's Girl, the new movie, did not make $10 million. We'll get to exactly how much that did make, but yeah, that's what we're looking at, Clayton. But still a packed show coming up. So why don't we start with a plow for this streak-breaking weekend of Friday, January 26, 2024.
Number one, overtaking Mean Girls. The Beekeeper made $7.4 million, down only 14%. It added 7 theaters. It's at $42.2 million in its third weekend. Number two, Mean Girls, Fallen from the Perch, $7.3 million, down 37%. It hemorrhaged 282 theaters. It's at $60.8 million in its third weekend. Number three, Wonka made $5.9 million, down 12%. It lost 122 theaters. It's at $195.1 million in its seventh weekend of release. Number four, Migration made $5.1 million, down 6%. It lost 132 theaters. It's at $101.2 million in its sixth weekend. Number five, Holding Steady, Anyone But You, $4.8 million, down only 11%. It dropped 43 theaters. I'm sorry, $71.1 million cum in its sixth weekend. Number six, A Newbie Fighter made $3.6 million in only 662 theaters. It is at 4.2 in its first week and weekend of release. Number seven, getting a big Oscar bump. Poor Things, $3 million plus 43%, added 890 theaters. It's at $24.7 million in its eighth week of release. Another one, number eight, American Fiction, $2.8 million, up 65%. It added 852 theaters. It's at $11.8 million in its seventh weekend of release. Number nine, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom made $2.8 million, down 23%. It lost 305 theaters. It's at $118.1 million in its sixth weekend in release. And number 10, Godzilla Minus One, $2.6 million, plus 276% in only 535 theaters. It's at $55 million in its ninth weekend of release. Now, this is the black and white version of this
Yes,
film.
yes. Well, here's something I want to bring up. There's a lot to talk about, even though no movie made 10 million. Let's start with Godzilla minus one, because we did get an email from our, just a family member of the show here, Danny Escamilaggi of I Screen, You Scream 4, number
The number
4
four.
movies. And he wrote 2 weeks ago, because Godzilla minus one has now made over $100 million domestically, and he wanted to mark that occasion. And now this movie's in the top 10. So I think we have to mark that
Wait.
occasion.
No, $100 million domestically?
Worldwide.
Worldwide. Yeah, no, this
Yes,
is
worldwide.
55. Okay.
No, I know that. He knows that. We all know that. But still, $100 million
Well, why did you say domestically
worldwide.
then? I had to call you on it.
Did I say
You
domestically?
said
I think I said
domestically.
worldwide. I think I said
You said
worldwide. But
domestically.
I but
Pull that clip, Christopher.
anyways,
Pull that clip.
anyways,
Clip that
anyways,
clip.
anyways.
Cut that clip.
I do want to mark that occasion because Danny wanted us to mark it. And he asks us, does Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire, perform going forward with this amazing result from -1. So does the success of -1 help the end of March release of Godzilla X Kong? So they're not versus, they're Xing each other. Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire. Uh, I mean, I think it could only help. I think Godzilla's profile hasn't been higher in decades. Kong previously carried this duo, but now Godzilla, he's got the shine on him, and maybe he is able to Godzilla's going to be able to get out there and go on the promotional tour and get the kind of bookings he usually doesn't get in the past.
Now, first things first, and Pat, I'm coming in a little chippy
You're coming
now
in
here,
chippy for a lot
and
of reasons
yeah,
here,
yeah. So
mostly your own psychosis and
okay,
childhood stuff, and
yeah.
yeah.
No, that's not what it is. But anyway, I am
No,
coming
that's
in
true.
chippy.
I apologize. Your childhood was great. It's more your adulthood has been a huge problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I would agree with that. Now, the X is what the and to have to describe this to you as a millennial, you being a millennial, me being Gen X, I should be the one out of the loop. But an X is a collab. So it's a
That's what
collab
I
between them now. So they're not
Yeah.
fighting, they are collaborating.
That is also exactly what I said. They're not fighting anymore. They're a team.
Okay. But what I'm
Yeah,
saying is
yeah.
the
The
X
voices in your head, I think, are not allowing you to hear what I'm
no,
saying. So,
what the X signifies a collab, and that is something that you should know as a millennial. Now,
I'm a Gen Xer, and yes, I also did make it clear that they are teaming up. They're not fighting anymore.
okay, so here's the other thing. Um, Godzilla, I feel like is the reason they like Godzilla -1 is because it's done by people who understand Godzilla, and I've said this previously. Americans don't understand Godzilla. So this Godzilla movie, this Godzilla X Kong,
Mhm.
is going to be another middling effort done by Americans that doesn't get Godzilla. So I think, yeah, there's going to be an awareness, but I think people are going to say, oh, well, -1 is a real Godzilla movie because it's done by people who understand Godzilla. So I think there will be an awareness, but I don't think it's going to give it a big enough bump. I don't think it's going to give it a huge bump.
Well, I think that listen, obviously the super fans of this genre are going to know that these are different studios, different creatives making these movies. But I just think in general, people are going to have a more positive feeling about Godzilla than they've had in years. Even if, like you said, it's different creatives behind the scenes, different actor playing Godzilla in the Godzilla X Kong, the collab, than in Godzilla -1. But I do think people are just going to be more excited about Godzilla than they have ever been. And yeah, good chance Godzilla collab Kong is going to be mediocre, but I think that opening weekend is going to have a lot more buzz than this movie would have had if Godzilla -1 hadn't happened.
Yeah, I mean, his Q score is definitely higher than it has been in a very long time.
Right, right. Kong is still the star,
Yeah.
but I don't think they've ever felt more equal going into a collab than they do right now.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I do think this is positive for that film, definitely.
Yeah.
But I just wanna mitigate people's expectations on this that I think still I mean, that is, they had a series on Apple TV Plus, I think, that also ties into this, right? Because they're doing that whole, Wyatt Russell was in it, and it's I think in the same universe.
Okay.
So we're maybe getting some dilution here. Like, I mean, not learning the lesson from the MCU, like make these things special. I know Godzilla
Mhm.
and Kong won't be in that TV show or weren't in that TV show, but I think you gotta just don't dilute your brand. Make it special for the big screen.
Yeah, although nobody has Apple TV Plus, so I don't think there's not enough awareness or access to even do any dilution.
Mhm.
They could basically air 600 hours of Godzilla Kong new TV shows on Apple Plus, and it just wouldn't matter because no one's gonna have access to it. But yeah, I think to answer Danny, I think it's gonna help. And listen, Godzilla v Kong back in spring of 2021 was one of the movies that really got us out of COVID, or at least, reopen theaters again. People forget what a big hit that movie was day and date on HBO Max at the time, and still made over 100 million domestic. So
And of
there's
course,
definitely a fandom here.
Versus is the sophomore album by Pearl Jam. It's a Gen X band that I
Yes,
know. I don't know what your band's like, High
I
School
was
Musical soundtrack and things like that. I don't know what your music
I
was,
am
but
a Gen Xer.
yeah.
I remember watching the My Sharona scene and Reality Bites as it happened. I was sad the day Kurt Cobain died. I'm a Gen Xer. So
Okay.
let's move on in this top 10.
Somebody's protesting too much, it feels.
Let's move on in the top 10. We'll get to all the Oscar movies and the bumps they got in a bit. So we'll talk about Poor Things and American Fiction, and did Zone of Interest get a big bump? We will talk about that. Clayton, I'd like to jump to, it's the movie we talk about a lot. Anyone But You. Have you heard the news about this Valentine's re-release? Have you heard that yet?
No, drop that news on me.
Okay, so and I'm looking at a Reddit post, but this seems to be a confirmed piece of news from our box office that Anyone But You is going to have a Valentine's Day edition with an extended runtime of 4 extra minutes. And it'll
Yes.
it'll be in the theaters from the second week of February onwards. So 4 extra minutes. Now, in that Reddit post, there is some speculation that, and this is from a Reddit poster, apparently a
Alright.
bunch of saucy stuff was removed, mostly nudity and sex. I doubt it's being put back in, although that would be cool. So that is
Okay.
a Reddit
Alright, here
post.
we go. Yeah, yeah. That sounds
So
like a Reddit post.
that sounds like, well, but to be fair, I would say that Reddit poster was playing it pretty even keeled. That
Yeah.
he, she, they person hopes
Person.
that the nudity and sex is put back in, but they don't know for sure. They don't know for sure. But hey, listen, now that's out there in the world.
Uh,
It's
uh,
out there in the world.
listen, this is and okay, this isn't just a Redditor being horny, okay? Which is something that I'm sure we all come across constantly in our day-to-day lives is
Right.
people on Reddit being horny. If they do add in nudity and sex,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a positive move for culture because
Mm-hmm.
theatrical films have been sexless for a very long time. Marvel, thank you. DC, thank you. Pixar,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. Not that Pixar should be sexy. But I think that if they're like, yeah, people are now ready for this, that is a positive move in culture, I think.
Right. And, and
Towards
and
more adult, like people going to the theater to see, you know, people on in like a narrative feature enjoying each other's bodies, which hasn't been happening,
mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, and the fact that now once again we're thinking that might be a draw. That might be something that gets people to leave the house rather than to lock themselves in their house. That
Yes.
now a major studio thinks, and listen, this has not been confirmed. This is a thought thrown out by a Redditor that the 4 extra minutes might have saucy stuff, might have
Yeah.
nudity. But if that is what's in there, then Sony thinks that that kind of stuff is a draw, which is, you're right. It's definitely a shift from the last 10, 15 years of studio movies.
And I also wanna, say this isn't all about Sydney Sweeney, huh? We
No,
want
no.
it's more Glenn Powell too. Let's see more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that that is a great sign for box office. Listen, the main thing is it's a great sign that Sony knows what it has with this movie, and it's not satisfied just to make what it's already made and
No.
then get it on PVOD, get it on Netflix. They want more box office, and the theaters must be loving seeing a studio give this extra effort.
Yes.
And in terms of the movie theaters, they'll put whatever they need to put on screen to get people to buy that popcorn.
Yes. Yes.
Theaters have shown that since the inception of theaters,
Yeah.
that you could go sit down, they'll put whatever they need to put on that screen to get you to buy some candy, buy some
Mike and
popcorn.
Ike's.
Yeah. So it's very exciting, and that's the kind of thing that maybe, what is this movie at right now? It's still at around, it's at 71
71.
million.
So
Is
Ticket to
100?
Paradise Ticket to
Yeah.
Paradise has been beaten.
Yep. Yep.
Is 100 possible?
Is 100 possible? Is 100 possible? I guess it depends on what these 4 extra minutes are gonna be. It really does. It
Mhm.
really does what's in these 4 minutes.
Well, here's the thing. I do think that this could be a Valentine's Day destination for some people.
Yeah.
So you're definitely gonna get a big Valentine's Day bump. But after that, feel like the run could be over. I feel like that will be the peak and the culmination. I mean, it'll
Mhm.
still, there'll be still people seeing it, but I think that's when you drop it on PVOD
Yeah.
and it starts making the rounds and then eventually ends up on Netflix. So I do think that Valentine's will be the peak. So it's probably not going to get to 100.
Right, right. If that 4 minutes is 4 minutes of hardcore sex, does it get to 100,000,000? Let's just put it out there. Just if.
I would hope, but
And you've seen this film. You've seen this film. Is there any possibility based on what is in the existing
oh,
version?
oh
Really?
yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
There is nudity in this film.
Okay. Okay.
There is nudity in this film. So yeah, I mean, if it is like
Spice Channel level.
Spice Channel level.
Yeah, think back, and this, reference that all
Oh,
us
I'm
Gen
there,
Xers
baby.
get.
I'm there,
All us
baby.
Gen Xers get that reference.
Let me
Spice
descramble
Channel
it. I'm
level.
descrambling it in my brain.
Yeah.
I'm watching the waves. I'm riding
Yeah.
those waves. I see it. Ah, I'd like to get there, but I don't think I can get to 100 mil. What do you
Okay.
think?
Spice Channel level 4 minutes. Does it get to 100,000,000? Yeah, because I think it brings in a new audience that hasn't seen this film yet, and maybe hasn't seen a film in a theater in a really long time.
So you think
RIP, I think it brings in the Pee-wee audience.
Pee-wee audio. Okay, yeah. Or the Fred Willards, if you will,
Yep.
RIP as well.
Yep.
So the trench coat people,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
trench coaters.
The
I was
trench
about to use
coaters.
another term, and I was like,
Different
get it a
different
different thing, different connotation.
different thing, different thing, different
Got
thing.
out.
Yeah.
You would have had to get out the caution tape, and we were gonna have Brett on, so we had the caution tape at ready
Yeah,
from
he's
the new Flesh because he doesn't care. He lets it fly.
yeah,
No
he
safe
says
spaces when it comes to Brett.
none. None. Yeah.
From the New Flesh podcast, of course, great New Flesh podcast. So, hashtag
Hard
our
lifestyle, of course.
lifestyle. There we go.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, I don't see 100. I'd love it though. I would love it.
Yeah. It's gonna be. I mean, right now, to me, that's the most interesting thing over the next weeks. We have some big new releases coming out. We got Madam Web, etc. But anyone but you, the extra 4 minutes. Can the extra 4 minutes get it to 100,000,000 domestic? That's one of the biggest stories of February. So
Well,
we will see.
it's also going to be Sweeney versus Sweeney.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, depending on what those 4 minutes are, Sweeney Anyone But You might beat Sweeney Madam Web on Madam Web's opening weekend.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on what those 4 minutes are. Obviously, Reddit is wild with speculation. I don't think even Reddit has mentioned Spice Channel centric content there, but I'm throwing that out there. So who knows?
Uh, can I pick the next movie we talk about just
Of course.
briefly?
Go for it.
How about me getting this right? The
Up.
beekeeper finally taking over the mountain and getting to it's Queen Bee. I mean, talk about the real Queen Bee,
Mhm.
the beekeeper overtaking Mean Girls, a movie nobody likes.
Well,
Nobody likes this movie.
you're pretty hard on a movie that is made like 4 times its budget. It's made 60,000,000.
Show me someone who likes it.
Show you someone who likes it. Okay, well, listen, here's the thing. I know of 3 people from where I work who went to go see this movie on Friday. So I
Okay.
will get in touch with them tomorrow.
Mhm.
Um, and I will get their opinions and see if any of them liked it and
Okay.
bring it back to you on
Now,
the next episode.
if they're like, "Nah, we didn't really like it," will you then agree from that sample size, that pretty large sample size,
Mhm.
that nobody likes it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
I will base everything on these 3 people.
Great. I love
Yeah.
that. So Beekeeper number 1, that's great. I mean, Wonka marching to 200 is big. Migration, migrating over 100 million. I mean, we had really low expectations for this movie, and it's not a
Yeah.
smash by any standard, but this is definitely not a complete clunker like we were worried it could be.
Oh, not at all. I mean, it made over 100 million.
Yeah.
It's now this was Illumination, right? Yeah, it's I mean it's
Chin.
Illumination knows this kid audience better than any studio, any bunch of creators out there right now.
Yeah,
They just do.
absolutely.
I mean, Migration is B level Illumination and it's made over $100 million domestic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, at this point, they completely trounce the Disney and Pixar films.
Oh,
Inside Out 2 will do Bafa Bobo, but that is a franchise that existed before the collapse of Pixar. But
yeah.
the Migration is just a brand new, based on nothing, you know, a movie that is now done over 100 million. Disney and Pixar just cannot make movies like that right now. They can't make animated films based on nothing that do over 100 million.
Yeah. No, they can't. And these re-releases, I mean, that Soul re-release did 0. These other re-releases, I mean, Soul, I think, was the one. Uh, I amend that. Turning Red is the one that probably had the best chance of actually doing well in theaters.
Mhm.
And I think just it's both. It's going to be DOA, and Luca is completely DOA.
Yeah. What has actually come out of those yet? I
Only
know
Soul,
Soul,
only
only
Soul,
Soul. Okay.
only Soul.
I mean, yeah, in theory, Turning Red has the best chance to do well of those three, but then what is even doing well at this point for
I mean,
those?
doing well is not doing as well as the Nightmare Before Christmas re-release. Like none of those are even gonna sniff
No,
Jack
none of those.
Skellington's suit pants.
Yeah. So yeah, Migration doing well. I mean, Wonka's gonna end up being ahead of Dead Reckoning Part 1 worldwide and The Little Mermaid worldwide.
That's
So it
big,
is,
yes.
it's moving up the worldwide rankings of since it came out in December of 2023 movies.
And Dune 2,
Wow,
again,
that's gonna be gigantic.
I mean, after the drought of movies before
Hmm.
it, I do think, we always talk, and I think you talk about this more than I do, this like pent up anticipation or pent up need to see a movie, any movie.
Hmm.
I don't see that for every weekend. I do think that people have gone away from movies being one of the things that is like the first thing in their mind they think of. But something like Dune 2 with Zendaya and Chalamet, especially after Wonka, it is gonna be like water in the desert.
Yes, yes. And it's going to, and I think it will have a carry, not to get into too far down the road of a preview, but I think you look at March 1st, Dune 2 comes out. I think that is going to be a real boon to everything that comes after in the weeks after. I mean, even though Kung Fu Panda is a different audience, Imaginary is a different audience, those movies that come out on the week after Dune 2, I think will get people back in the habit of going to the movie
Yes.
theaters again.
Yes,
And
yes,
that's going to
yes.
benefit, I mean, God, Arthur the King, probably not, but I mean, the one that could ride the coattails a little bit of Dune 2 is maybe that Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, just because at least it's getting people in the theaters and they'll see that trailer. But then I
Mhm.
think Godzilla Collab Kong, the new Empire, end of March, that'll be the one that benefits the most from Dune 2, teaching people to go back to the movies.
Yeah, because that's more of a real big screen experience. I mean, you wanna
Yeah.
be able to see how big Kong is, how big Godzilla is on an
Yeah.
IMAX screen, and, people will watch Ghostbusters on IMAX, but it's like, how tall does, Tracy Letts have to be?
Right.
I'm
Right.
assuming Tracy Letts is in this.
Yeah. Why did you say Tracy Lott? Oh, because his wife's in the movie.
But he was in the first one, but I guess it was a very
Was
small
he?
part. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, he was a
wow.
very small part in this first one.
All right. So anything else in this weekend's top 10? Well, I mean,
Let's talk about the Oscar bumps. I think the
let's talk
Oscar
about the
bumps are
Oscar bumps.
important.
Okay. Okay. And just listeners, we are going to get way into Miller's Girl. So stick around for that. But yeah, these Oscar bumps, What stuck
Stick
out to you?
around for that.
Stick around for that. We're gonna get into Miller's Girl. We're gonna get into it.
Stick around for that.
Stick around for that. Well, listen, some listeners, uh, m maybe they don't think that they wanna hear the box office bumps for the zone of interest, but it's a little bit of these are the Oscar movies, these are the art movies, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. We're gonna talk about whether the Oscar noms help these out. Is there anything that stuck out to you about these Oscar movies and the bumps they got post nominations? Did anything did smack you in the face and feel like a big effing deal?
I mean, nothing really smacked me in the face. I mean, I do think Poor Things is, despite the terrible mishandling of it by Searchlight, is doing really well. I think it definitely is a movie that, other than the Barbie snub, is getting, like, a lot of conversation about it now,
Mhm.
because people, like, people in the stacks, the stacks dwellers, the earth dogs, they are seeing it and they're talking
Mhm.
about it, which is big.
Mhm.
So, it's now in 2,300 theaters. I mean, it should have been in that a very long time ago, but now
Yeah.
we're there. So, $3 million, it's one of those things, a big star's in it. This is a movie with a big star in it. I mean, and this was a movie that didn't have a big star in it, but The Shape of Water,
Mhm.
a movie that I did not like, but I'm not a critic, huh?
Huh?
It was a fish fucking movie, and that movie ended up doing pretty well domestically because of its Oscar nominations and subsequent wins.
Mhm. Well, and if you look at what got all the nominations for Best Picture, Barbie and Oppenheimer, even though they did add theaters this weekend, they had been out for so long, made so much money, they've been on streaming forever. So those movies weren't going to get any kind of bump. So it really was the Poor Things is almost the biggest movie possible that you could go see that got a lot of Oscar nominations.
Mhm. I mean, American Fiction also got a good bump, which I love because that movie was so much better than we expected, and that new trailer for it is so much better than the first one,
Mhm.
because it really
Mhm.
shows you that this is like a domestic comedy. This is a sort of heartfelt family film, which I think is
Mhm.
n and I don't mean, like, take your kids to it, but by all means, please take your kids to it.
Mhm.
But, it's, like, about a family, which I think is great. So I love seeing these in the top 10, even in a sort of weak, weekend at the box office.
Right. I do wonder if Poor Things is gonna be able to keep banking and moving up in the rankings the next few weeks because, I mean, we'll talk about it on our preview episode in a few days. Argyle is the biggest thing opening on Friday. So it's not like there's anything that's really going to get that audience's interest. So the audience that just wants to see the best movie possible, buzziest movie possible in theaters, it's still pretty much going to be Poor Things the next few days. I don't think Argyle is going to be taking that spot.
Mhm.
So it could, the benchmark is The Favorite, which did what, 34 million in its run.
I
So
think it was 32.
does Poor Things, it made 3 million this weekend. Does it have 8 to 10 million left in its run? I kind of think so. I kind of think it'll play well in February. I mean, this is also
34, you are right, 34.
yeah, this is also a movie that could get a cheeky Valentine's type marketing
Yes.
campaign. I mean, it's risky, for those who have
Oh,
seen
it's
the
very
movie.
risky, yes.
But Searchlight could do a, you know, this is the date movie for Valentine's is Poor Things. They could.
Yeah,
I think
like
it's there. You can't really do that American Fiction. There's no romance at the center of this. Not that there's really a romance in Poor Things, but there's stuff that I
yes.
think you could work into a fun Valentine's weekend commercial.
Yeah, yeah. And I also think, I mean, it is a hard movie to thank God Emma Stone was in it, and
Mhm.
Yorgos, has a bit of a name with a certain group of people, that this movie was even, able to be marketed the way it was, just because it is a tough movie to market.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, right now I'm trying to figure out the Valentine's marketing for, and it's tough. It's
Because
tough, but it's
you
there.
don't but you also don't wanna sell something that it's not.
Yeah, you don't want to sell something that's
And you
not.
also
Yeah,
don't wanna diminish the things that it's actually saying and doing
you
by being
don't.
like, it's a sex comedy, which it
Yeah,
is, but not,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
We're not
yeah.
critics, huh?
Huh. Yeah. That I mean, obviously, that's the movie that has the best chance of gaining something from the Oscar noms. I mean, I'll bring it up just because this is the bungling of this release, I think, is the one that hurts the most, is the holdovers. They added
Mhm.
theaters. Last weekend it was in 127 theaters. This past weekend it was over 1,200 theaters. And it went from making $77,000 last weekend to 520,000. So it made $500,000 this weekend, but it's a movie that's been on PVOD since before Thanksgiving. It's a movie that has been on Peacock for about a month now,
Mhm.
probably more than a month. Um, eh, this is a movie. This is another one of those movies, like we said, that should have had a earlier wide release and should have had a more exclusive theatrical window.
Mhm.
And obviously people are going to get more interest in seeing this movie after it's up for best picture, but I think this is a movie that people would have seen back in November if they had access to it, which never really happened. The most movie theaters the holdovers was ever in was 1,600 theaters, and it was
That's
only
a
in 1,000
crime.
theaters for 3 weeks
That's a
after
crime.
after already being put on PVOD. it's
That's
it's yeah,
terrible. It's terrible. I mean, this thing could have been a hit
yeah,
because it is a great movie. It is a humane film. It is a movie that you can have anybody watch. I mean, there's nothing truly filthy in it. There's, it is one of those movies that is just like a good time for everyone.
yeah.
And it's a shame that it didn't even make it to 20.
It didn't even, well, it didn't yet. It's at 19.3 and made 520,000 this past weekend. I wonder if they could get it over that line, and get it to 20 million. At least that'll just feel like a cleaner number. So I hope that happens.
Yeah, I do too. So zone of interest, you wanted to mention that $1 million plus 142%. It's in 317 theaters, which is a plus of 235 theaters. So it's a $3 million in its seventh weekend of release. I mean, does not really have a shot to win Best Picture, but it is a Best Picture
Mhm.
film. So, I mean, this for me as an Oscar watcher, it gives me more of an opportunity to see this in theaters, which I am begrudgingly going to do. Not that I don't think it'll probably be good. It just does not seem like a good time, which things don't always have to be a good time to be worth your time.
Is there, and I know we're talking a lot now about like possible marketing, possible new commercials. Is there a new commercial for Zone of Interest that really does highlight the big box office jump it had this weekend? I mean, should they just plaster a commercial? Come see the Zone of Interest up 142% in theaters last weekend, made over $1 million. Just get the box office number in the commercial. Zone of
Now,
interest expanding up 142%, catching fire at the box office, just like really just getting that in there, like a peppier just ad that makes this seem like the big thing to do right now.
and I truly thought, and I don't know, maybe it was because we thought Brett was going to be on this show, so we were going to be no holds barred,
Mhm.
that you were going to say, is there a way to make this a Valentine's movie?
Okay.
That's what I thought you were gonna say, and I was
Right.
searching my brain, and I thought, probably not. I
Probably
mean,
not. I
there's
haven't seen this film. It is a from what I've heard, it is a drama centered around a married couple.
yeah, so, I mean, you could have just a scene of one of the people in the couple who happen to be of a certain proclivity. They're Nazis, correct?
I haven't seen the film. I haven't seen the film.
Okay. One giving the other flowers. Um,
Mm,
if there is a scene like that or one clipping flowers and making a bouquet,
right.
and then that's the scene you show, and then you say this Valentine's the zone of interest. I think that'd be in very poor taste,
Right, right,
and I
right.
wouldn't do it,
I wouldn't do it either, but
but you gave me a prompt, and I was using my marketing mind.
yeah, I wouldn't do that. I would stick more with the, like, this movie jumped at 142% in box office. You gotta see it, the zone of interest. Focus more on the positive, results from last weekend and let people feel like there's a happening, you know?
Again, this thing is not for general audiences, so it would be very hard for it to break out bigger than this.
Yes, yes, probably, but, I think they should try. I think they should try.
Now, okay, so we're gonna get to Miller's Girl,
We
but I
got it.
do have to point out
We gotta.
that The
Mhm.
Color Purple
Okay.
is dead. This movie has only been
Where
out for
is it?
5 weeks. It is down to 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, number 21.
Wow.
$430,000. It is only in 503 theaters.
Wow. It is only a few spots above Trolls Band Together in its
Yes,
11th weekend.
and Hunger Games: Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Killer of the Flower Moon is right under that. What happened to The Color Purple? This is something I think we need to, like, investigate, like, how this movie went from a possible surprise smash with its amazing first day numbers
Yep. $18 million Christmas Day. Yep.
to 5 weeks later being in the cellar,
Yeah.
not being in contention for Best Picture, having
Yeah.
one, I think probably one, there's maybe more than one nomination, but one big nomination, which is the supporting actress.
Mhm.
What happened with The Color Purple? It is shocking to me that this movie, I'm not shocked that it didn't break out in a big way necessarily, but I'm shocked that it is where it is this quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't realize it had fallen that far down the rankings. It's behind Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
Oppen
Oppenheimer had got a bump.
Oppenheimer got a re-release. I guess it must have gotten in a bunch of IMAXs again this weekend. Is that what happened? Um, but it got a bump. It added 1,000 theaters. Yeah, I mean, it didn't get the Oscar nominations, and then the Oscar nominee movies all jumped ahead of it this weekend. It made 60 million. Obviously, Warner Brothers was hoping it would make a lot more. I think it cost them that they it made more, but it just didn't take off. And I think Warner Brothers, once they saw the first couple of, after a few weeks, they put all their eggs into promoting Wonka and to kind of into not promoting Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, because as we said, that movie famously got its premiere at a Knights of Columbus hall. But that movie did better than people were thinking it would do. And I think Warner Brothers just sort of like ended up moving Color Purple to like third on its list of what it cared about.
I think genuinely it was Wonka that pushed it out. It wasn't Aquaman. They had already lost so
Yeah,
much
yeah,
money on Aquaman, and, like, they
yeah.
really did sort of stop promoting that
Yeah,
movie.
they just
It
promoted Wonka.
they
Yeah.
promoted Wonka, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's gonna be interesting, but let's get to the meat. This is what you wanted people to wait for.
Yeah.
This is
This is
your weather at the end of the local news. This
yeah.
is Miller's Girl, which opened
Yeah.
in 23rd place with $321,000 in 350 theaters. Now, this is under a
Mhm.
movie, my number 1 movie of the year, All of Us Strangers,
Okay, that's your number one movie of the year. Wow.
which
I
is
gotta see this.
only in 275 theaters and has made $3 million in 6 weeks. It somehow placed above a brand new film
Uh-huh.
starring Jenna
Jenna.
Ortega.
Jenna Ortega. Yeah. Um, yeah, when we did our predictions episode and we predicted the results for Miller's Girl starring Jenna Ortega, we did not realize just how few theaters this movie was opening in.
Well, the theater counts weren't out. So
Theater
the
counts were not out.
expectations, I mean, I said Armageddon time because my expectation was this was gonna open in 800 to 1,000 theaters.
Mhm.
So extrapolate that out. I mean, it's possible this thing made $800,000 if it opened in 1,000 theaters. It opened in 350 theaters. And this is a movie, Lionsgate release,
Yeah.
also produced by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg.
Yeah, is this the smallest rollout of a Seth Rogen produced movie ever?
It sorta would have to be. I couldn't imagine, I couldn't imagine anything smaller.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know of any other like art house type movies he's ever produced, and this is not an art house type movie. This is a movie that seemed like it was produced with I mean, as Brett of the New Flesh said in his review, titillating audiences
Yeah.
and getting them out to the movie theater, but in the end, they only put it in 350 theaters. I mean, listen, the Lionsgate situation uh is really something that for everyone to keep their eye on because I mean, that is a studio that I think does not know what it is anymore. And
I
they
mean,
had
but
they had the Hunger Games huge hit, so they want to
Saw
get their
X?
IP. They've got their IPs.
John Wick?
Yeah, John Wick, Saw X, Hunger Games, so they've definitely got their IPs. But when it comes to non non Lionsgate IP movies, I don't think the studio feels confident in releasing movies wide. Well, I mean, let's also say it. We both saw this film.
Mhm,
We
we saw
have
this movie.
both seen Miller's Girl this weekend to
Starring
completion, starring Jenna Ortega. We both saw this
Jenna
film.
Ortega.
And now, having seen it, is there a world in which Lionsgate should have given this a wider release? Like, should this have been a movie they tried to actually make money off? I mean, I don't even know what this 350 theater release is. Is it just they were contractually obligated by probably by
Y
Seth Rogen?
yeah, I mean, I think it's funny that, like, even and we don't know this for a fact, but even with the clout someone like him and his partner have,
Yeah.
hit movies, and they continue to produce movies that are hits,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, that he
Teenage
only
Mutant Ninja Turtles.
yeah, that he only got 350 guaranteed for this movie
Right.
shows how hard it is to get anything that isn't some sort of genre put out in theaters.
Yeah. Eh, So this type of movie isn't getting made initially with the thought that they're only going to put it in 350 theaters. I don't think that you make it's not a sex thriller, that's for sure, but a this is not an Oscar bait movie in any way.
No.
This is not a
Yes.
movie that, okay, we're making this small movie because it might win awards. It's good, or it's a passion project. I'm sure everyone was very passionate about making it, but it doesn't feel like that type of movie. It feels like a movie that, hey, we've got this sexy script and we've got Jenna Ortega, this young rising star in
Jenna.
it, and we think we could make some money on this. People will go see it. And I don't think when they were putting this together, the thought was we're only going to put it in 325 theaters.
Yeah, I mean,
So something changed.
I think this was a blacklist script.
Okay. Um yeah, I think it's a case of Lionsgate as a studio that is probably pretty cash strapped and is going to be very, very gun shy about giving a wide release to anything that's not one of their Saw, Hunger Games, John Wick, like sure thing IP movies.
Well, let's be honest here.
Be
Like,
honest.
this movie, I watched it and I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was great, but it is a sort of movie that was, at a time, made more. Like, they made
Mhm.
more movies sort of like this
Right.
with the expectation that it would do okay in the theater and then sell like mad on VHS.
Yes. Yes.
Right,
Yes.
because this is a movie that back in my day, Gen X,
My day
Uh,
as well. Both our
okay,
day.
not really, but you would rent movies to be titillated
Yes.
because you maybe couldn't get into the theater to see this movie because you were not of age. And then you would, watch these movies to get titillated. And I think that is one of those things where that sort of is where it lives. So without that, without that sort of, and I always talk about the pipeline, but without that sort of pipeline, it's like this movie. I don't want movies to go straight to streaming, but this movie almost makes more sense as like going straight to streaming. So, like, if this would go
I
right
mean,
on
it basically
Stars,
is. It basically is,
and
right?
also, yeah, so like this is a movie that I could see if it premieres on Stars, that being a big deal because Jenna
Yes.
Ortega
Yeah,
is in
Jenna.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it this 350 theater release with absolutely no promotion. I mean, they spent nothing on commercials, on billboards, on pop-up ads. Like,
No,
there's no, you
she didn't
know,
eat the wings. Sydney Sweeney was eating the wings.
yeah, Jenna Ortega
Jenna Ortega was not eating the wings.
was not eating the wings to promote this. So I mean, it's a just contractual obligation theatrical release.
Yeah,
But it's basically gonna be new to streaming whenever it goes to it. I think Lionsgate, they own Stars, so most likely that, I guess, is where it goes.
yeah,
Um, we'll talk about this now as a movie because I do think if this movie were to end up on Netflix in a couple of weeks, it would be uh as talked about as any movie is when they drop on Netflix. I think this would be millions and millions of people would watch it, and I think they'd watch it to completion.
yeah. It's also an hour and a half.
Yeah, which is great. Um, so we
And there's
both
some
saw this.
fun performances. They would be like, "We need to talk about blank in Miller's Girl."
Yeah. Well,
And it wouldn't be Jenna Ortega.
who do you think they would talk about? We've both seen this. Go for it. Who titillated you in watching this film?
Well, I'm gonna say, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, now you're putting me on the spot because I don't remember the actor's name, but,
Okay.
they were married to Martin Freeman in this film.
Okay. So you the Dagmara Domenchik. Listen, uh, that's my best try. But she is an actress who was in The Lost Daughter. She's on Succession. She
Yeah.
plays Martin Freeman's wife in this film. I agree. This is just a balls out, bombastic, titillating, and entertaining performance from that
Yes.
actress Dagmara. I mean, it's a great performance. She steals this movie. Would have I think if people had a chance to see this performance on a big screen, they also would love it. They also would be titillated by it.
Yeah.
And I think when that performance of hers gets to Netflix, it's going to be just a huge talking point. People are going to
Yeah.
love it.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I think their dynamic, her and Martin Freeman, is very, very over the top and very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great to see a married couple enjoy each other as much as they did. And even with all the stuff he was up to, we won't spoil it, huh? But obviously,
Uh,
you see the trailer, Martin Freeman, Jenna Ortega, he's getting up to stuff.
yeah.
And it's incredible how long the wife character, I think, seems to indulge him getting up to stuff.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that makes this movie much more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. And here's something I'll throw out there having seen this movie. It's a movie set in a high school.
Mhm.
And
Sparsely populated high school.
that's the thing. It's obviously a matter of budget, but I think it worked for the movie and how bizarre it all felt that there were basically four actors who appeared in this movie that was set in a high school. Not in a high school. It's not the holdovers where it's in between semesters. This
Mhm.
is during the school year. They're in class constantly. We almost never see any students other than the ones played by Jenna Ortega and her one friend.
No, they're all extras, and they show up very sparingly. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's a budgetary thing, but I also think it does sort of work for this piece because it does not feel like reality. It does feel
Mhm.
like very novelistic, and it does because it's all about stories and it's about
Yeah.
writing and things. So I think it's very much like putting anybody else that isn't important to the story in the back burner is important to this film, and it also saves a lot of money.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
you don't
the
have to
1 or
pay.
2 times you see any students other than them, it feels like the crowd scenes in Gladiator.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah. I also do want to call out another great performance,
Okay.
Gideon Adlon,
Okay.
who was in Blockers
Oh,
and
okay.
The Mustang, so she played Winnie in this,
She's great. She's
and
great.
that's a very interesting performance that I really enjoyed as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's, it there's a scene when she's on a desk and she's talking to another teacher, which interesting about Miller's Girl is that there's multiple teachers
Mhm.
who this movie could have been about in sort of the same plot,
Yeah.
which you don't get from the trailer. You don't realize that basically there's 2 Miller's Girl situations happening in the same Miller's Girl
Yeah, yeah.
movie. Um, yeah, she was great. Everyone is so going for it in this movie.
Mhm.
And there is a time in which, listen, one of my Gen X classics, talked about it a little bit last week in the preview, The Crush. That movie opened up in 1,700 theaters back in 1993. Great time for us Gen Xers. And there's a world in which Miller's Place opens up in 1,500, 2,000
Miller's
theaters.
Girl.
Miller's Girl, right. Miller's Girl opens up in 1,500, 2,000. You're very offended by that I said Miller's Place instead of
It's
Miller's
just
Girl.
because then it'll be another thing we just keep saying, and I don't want
Uh,
that to be the case.
right. Yeah, that's right. I forgot I'm the mush mouth of the two of us.
Oh,
So
wow, okay, you're chippy too. I
so
see, I love it. Bring it,
yeah, it's great
bring it.
radio. It's
It's
great
great radio.
radio.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a world in which Miller's Girl, there you go, Miller's Girl opens in
Oh, s
2,000 theaters, and people are really talking about this movie. Listen, there's never a world in which this movie is opening to 15, $20 million, big hit. That was never going to happen.
no.
But a different time, a different audience, a bigger release rollout, some promotion. I think these type of performances in this movie actually would have gotten some attention, and they will definitely when this movie goes to Netflix. Probably not on Stars. I think on Stars, no one's also going to talk about this.
Yeah, but, I think also because we were talking when we didn't know how many theaters it was gonna be released in. This is the worst of both worlds because, people don't know it's in theaters. They don't look at it as a theatrical movie. So even putting it in 350 theaters sort of negates that this being an actual movie
Yeah,
because people are not gonna know. I mean, of course, the many, many, many wanna BO boys, wanna BO girls, wanna BO people,
people, they know.
they know,
Yeah,
so they'll look at it as a real movie, but
right.
the general population will be, "This is a new movie I found on streaming, and oh my god, we need to talk about
Yeah,
Winnie," you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I'm glad I saw this. I'll say that. I'm
Oh, I'm
very
too.
glad
I
I
mean,
saw
I
this.
wish there was more movies like this in theaters. I just wish there was, like, more opportunities for this sort of not great, but interesting, fun performances and, movies with, like, stars like this in
Mhm.
roles that aren't, you know, being Fly Woman or
Right.
whatever.
Well, I mean, look at Martin Freeman. I mean, he was in the Black Panther movies, the MCU movies, and
Yeah.
he's had his scenes where he's sitting in a spaceship and in front of a green screen and yelling pew 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 and
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And in this movie, he got to be an adult. He got to do a southern accent. He
Yes.
got he got to be in a sexy scene in the rain
Yeah.
and be a real man in this movie.
Yeah, fun. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like an actual by real man, you mean actual person, not like a fictitious like comic
Yes.
book character. That's
Yes, not
yeah,
not a guy who's half, who's half man, half, space robot or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Did you and everyone was doing southern accents and I thought it worked.
Yeah, I mean, because I think they did it enough, but not too much.
Yes. Yes. Um yeah, so that is Miller's Girl. Everyone, I can't say go see it cuz will it
It's
be in any
impossible.
theaters this
No,
weekend?
no, no. 300. I believe it'll be 350 this weekend, and then I do believe it has to be gone.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So then I think that's it. Obviously, anything else you want to get to?
No.
Okay. So email us, the BO Boys podcast at gmail.com. And in fact, I'm going to check right now if we got any emails that we need to get to here. Do, do, do. Okay, here's one that I do want to put out there. We got wannabe oh boy Jason had some thoughts about Oscar snubs, and I want to highlight one that he put out there. Man, I have some thoughts, but I usually chat about animation, and he brings up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Look,
Uh-huh.
I'm old. I like this movie, but the older CGI movie is still my fave. That said, it is an absolute groundbreaking movie and pushing the boundaries of what animation can be. You have the usual CGI crap, or you have this. The Oscars are meant to celebrate movies like this, and it's a huge snub. Uh, you know what? Thank you, Jason, because we did not say the name of these turtles when we did our Oscar Reacts episode last week.
Yeah.
This movie did not get nominated for Best Animated Feature Film. And this was a hit, big box office hit last
Mhm.
summer at a time when no one could promote any movies.
Yeah.
And so, sans any actor promotion, that movie made over $100 million at the box office in August. And I agree with Jason. This should have got the spot, I think, should have got the spot that Elemental got in Best
100%
Animated
because
Picture.
that was just a run-of-the-mill Pixar
Yeah.
sort of same style. I mean, yeah, they tweaked it a little bit. They always do a little bit, but they never make it super unique. This was a really cool, unique style of animation, and I'm not an animation guy. I think it's for babies, but I understand the appeal to the younger generation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that this was different, and it was a little bit more gross than most animation is.
Yeah,
Most
it was
animation is
gooey.
too clean, and this
Mm-hmm.
was, yeah, gooey and gross, and I appreciated that. And so, yeah, I do think that's a big snub that nobody's talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Mutant Mayhem should have been up for Best Animated Picture. So thank you, Wanna Be Oh Boy, Jason, for calling that out. And of course, email us, the BO Boys podcast at gmail.com. Follow us on social media at the BO Boys Pod. Wanna BO senior intern Christopher, killing it with the clips across Twitter X and TikTok. Keep doing a great job there, Christopher. And of course, Wannabe Junior intern Jack. He has brought our Substack back. He's got a new article up right now. He's analyzing this weekend at the box office. He's got preview articles up every single week, results articles. He's going through movies that meant something to him. Of course, he's got that Rising Stars to Watch in 2024 that he put up there last week. That is a must read if you haven't subscribed to the BO Boys Substack. You got to do it and check out that Rising Stars article.
Mm,
Controversial article,
yeah.
but a must read. So there's that. 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. And of course, we are YouTubers. If you haven't already, subscribe to the BO Boys Podcast YouTube network. Watch us there. We've got web exclusive content on there, as well as full episodes and clips. So go subscribe to us on YouTube. And I think that's it, Clayton.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything left to say
No, nothing.
except for until next time.
Will
Will
smell
smell
you.
you.